Gigguk is the single worst YouTuber in the history of... Yeah, I'm not gonna pull that again. But I will say this is a video that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and it was always hard for me to do it just because of what type of video this is going to be. If you don't know who Gigguk is, he's pretty much the biggest anime YouTuber or AniTuber on the platform. He's considered to be a reviewer or analyzer. He talks about some of the latest anime, does video essay-ish type content, and is still one of the few channels who has stayed an anime channel, while others have moved on to different styles of content. He was one of the first big AniTubers I've ever gotten into, and while I don't watch him nearly as much as I did when I was younger, he still makes pretty cool stuff, especially over at the Trash Taste channel. Gigguk is a good YouTuber, and I've been following him for quite a while. He's also a pretty cool guy, and I don't want any hate towards my man Gigguk. But whether it be through his podcasts, his videos, or streams, I've had quite a bit of a gripe with the way he talks about anime, and I'm not really alone on that. I was actually looking online to see what people thought of Gigguk, and I was surprised at how many people shared a similar sentiment to what I'm gonna get into later in this video. It's not like an insanely popular opinion or anything, you do have to look for it, but there are people who have criticized Gigguk and the things he said in the past. As a reviewer, he is by no means trying to tell you his opinion is above other people, but I do think Gigguk does come off as someone who holds his opinions pretty highly, as in he feels like he really knows what he's talking about and can tell you which anime are top tier and which anime are mid tier because, well, he's just seen so much anime. So much so that he has the authority to rate his viewers' anime lists. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but he is considered a critic, an analyzer, and is the biggest AniTuber on the platform. So in a sense, yeah, his opinions kinda do matter because it has a large influence over the broader anime community. I personally have had a problem with the way he talks about certain anime, and I think just like anything, is open to some criticism. The issue is that YouTuber criticism has a bit of a dicey reputation. A lot of people feel that it's wrong to criticize YouTubers or their content because in a lot of scenarios, the content is the person and comes off as if you're criticizing the person, and that can be pretty uncool to do. The only times when it is accepted is when a YouTuber just does something plain wrong or terrible. Personally, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with criticizing YouTubers, I just think it has to be handled very delicately. I don't want to use this video to hurt Gigguk in any way. He's a cool guy and doesn't deserve any type of hate. This is just kind of my opinion that you may or may not agree with. A lot of this could be very specific, maybe a bit biased, and a lot of what I say will be more so about his shonen takes, since that definitely seems to be his blind spot when we get further. Also, if I get anything wrong or misrepresent something, please let me know. I'll do my best to be as respectful as I can, but no matter what, this will probably be my most divisive video. This will probably be my longest video, but in spite of everything I just said, I hope you enjoy. If there's one word I would use to describe Gigguk's opinions, it would be safe. I've seen a lot of people say this already, so let's just get this out of the way. Gigguk is a pretty safe YouTuber. He's not really the type of person to give out really daring hot takes. Some argue that he kind of bandwagons or regurgitates some of the most popular anime opinions at the time, and can typically talk about anime at a pretty surface level, with either giving pretty vague reasons for why he feels the way he does, or reasons that have already been said multiple times by other people. I would have agreed with this entirely, but after seeing some of his older videos, I don't think this is always the case. I actually think Gigguk has said some pretty interesting things in the past. I really like his problem with reviewing anime video, where he basically talks about how the anime community doesn't really have like a professional review outlet, and it's solely community driven, which he prefers. Or his Demon Slayer video was pretty cool. He had a pretty interesting breakdown on the Naruto fights, especially this little detail. He can be pretty good at talking about anime when he actually knows what he's talking about. There are some times, however, where his points can feel very and kind of basic, which, you know, is fair. After all, we're all human, we don't get it 100% of the time, but we gotta be fair here. He'll say Erased is bad, for example, by saying the ending is bad, and stuff before that was not very good, and not really elaborate too much further, just kind of that statement as is. But you know, could be a brain fart or the result of just being put on the spot. Or when he talked about why Black Clover has surpassed MHA, but not really give two specific reasons as to why he feels this way, other than...
My Hero Academia is a series that aims for greatness. Black Clover has never tried to be great. Black Clover has just tried to be fun.
I get what he's trying to say, but it is a pretty vague statement and a bit of a backhanded compliment to Black Clover. And I know this is a pretty old video, but one of the biggest examples of this is in his My Hero Academia fights are dull video, where he talks about MHA fights being dull, but the thing that makes them special is how they build story and characters. Which is the thing that every shonen does, but he's trying to make it sound like this is something unique to My Hero specifically. But I mean, hey, that don't matter, because conveniently when everyone started shitting on My Hero, he jumped on board, oh wow.
And pick out of the shonen that I've seen, what I think would be the best blind recommendation in the modern day and age. Ready for this? I don't want to show the next slide, man. I don't want to... Jujutsu Kaisen! I said it! Let me cook.
Whoa, he said that JJK is the best starter anime for shonen? Whoa, damn, such a bold statement. I can't believe he would have the balls to say something so innovative. You look at this tier list and it's like, damn. This is a pretty safe tier list.
I think that Soul Society was the peak of Bleach, and Hyukomundo was still very, very good Bleach, and it kind of fell off from there. It has some of the best villains of all time. And I know there's... What's the Chapter Black villain again? Because I feel like he was an amazing villain as well. Sensui, that's it. York New to me is just pure, concentrated S-tier shonen material. There is not a single episode in York New that is not like a 10 out of 10 banger. To me, the Spiders are the best group of villains in any shonen. Love that dynamic. I love their individual characters. The leader himself is fucking fantastic. Sometimes I feel Hunter x Hunter would work if it just followed the spider trope. Hunter x Hunter would be as good if it just followed them as the main character.
What? I'll let you watch the video for yourself, but I think my biggest problem here is that Gigguk goes out of his way to praise some of these series to high heavens, or maybe dog on them, without substantiating any of his claims. I get that it's a stream and he's being put on the spot, but for a tier list like this, I definitely think it's warranted to give a fairly good explanation as to why you feel the way you do about these shows. But here he just kind of recites a lot of the most popular opinions without giving much substance to his takes or really backing up the things he says. I don't want to jump to conclusions and say he's a bandwagoner per se, but in this stream, I can't say it didn't feel like he was pandering to his audience just a little too much. Like, I'm a huge Hunter x Hunter fan. It's one of my favorite series of all time. But even I could tell you that when he got to Hunter x Hunter, it did feel like he was overselling it just a little too hard, especially since he doesn't really talk about it all that much to suddenly get really enthusiastic about it in this stream in particular. And the same applies to Yu Yu Hakusho. When he does things like that, it does kind of make me feel like he's just going off of the safest opinion. He even has the same Big 3 ranking with reasons that you've probably heard before. Bleach fell off after Soul Society. Naruto is up and down with a bad war arc. And One Piece is the absolute best despite having its own share of problems, like being the hardest to get into, the most inconsistent, the least likely to kill characters, the most likely to do fake out deaths, the worst pacing, the worst composition, the worst fight choreography. If you've seen some of these streams, such as the Shonen tier list, you'll know that a lot of this stems from the fact that it's very clear Gigguk hasn't seen a lot of these anime in quite a long time. And he doesn't try to hide that. He makes it very clear he's kind of going on his gut when he's talking about them. And you have to remember that Gigguk has seen a lot of anime. So he's not gonna have the most in-depth opinion on each individual show. So I really don't think it's his fault. But I do think that this does create an inherent problem. Let's take creators like Shonen Showdown, Alexander, MathWiz, Masked Man, and all the bunch, who are much smaller YouTubers comparatively because they sort of have their own niche. Shonen Showdown talks about, well, shonen, Alexander talks about pretty much whatever media he feels passionate about at that moment. Masked Man talks about primarily manga. Broken Ronin talks about JJK and Blue Lock, etc. Now, the advantage that Gigguk has is because he's seen so much more anime, you can pretty much talk about any kind of anime you want with him. He has a general understanding of each genre and can make videos about any one of them, giving his videos a much wider appeal than just talking about shonen or something. But the edge that the other creators have is how they're able to talk about these shows in comparison. They power scale, they have their own interpretations and theories about certain series. They go in depth in a way that makes you rethink how you look at a series. You can tell they've really paid attention and made a connection with the art. I don't get this with Gigguk, or at least not as much. Like, okay, I don't think he needs to start making like 4-hour analysis videos or something, and I don't think you need to have crazy hot takes to be interesting. And I do think sometimes he can say something pretty interesting, like what I mentioned before. But other times his opinions can feel kind of like basic observations, opinions some people have already said, and often don't bring a lot of new discussion to the table. And this is something I'm also pretty guilty of. That's definitely something I've been trying to work on. He clearly loves Battle Shonen, for example, and has Hunter x Hunter and Hajime no Ippo in his, top 4, top 5 Battle Shonen? But I rarely hear him talk about them, or the things that really make them special other than, oh, Hunter x Hunter has the best power system in shonen. Oh, Hajime no Ippo is really hype. Or even other series where it's like, oh, Konosuba's characters make it funny. Wow, who knew? Like, you'll have a general idea of what makes these shows click with so many people and why they're cool. But after seeing what these creators have to say, it never feels like Gigguk goes further, maybe to explore aspects of a series people don't talk about enough. I don't think I'll ever hear Gigguk talk about, for example, maybe the unique arc structure and themes of each arc in Hunter x Hunter, or the philosophies and psychologies of the Naruto villains, or of other series for that matter.
To me, Johan is the best villain in anime.
Wait, what? I've never heard you talk about him! Something I value from a lot of critics and analyzers is how even though they're talking about a piece of media you already love, you can still learn something from them and gain a new perspective, and I think a lot of that comes from their pure enthusiasm of the series and yearning to learn more. So maybe it's just the case that he acknowledges that these series are great, but maybe doesn't have too much of a passion for them, which is fine. I mean, that can happen to a lot of people. I've seen many people say that this series is objectively great, but they lack an emotional attachment to it. I mean, personally, I don't believe in much in objectivity. I think you should really love a series before giving it that shiny S tier, but I get it. One of the series he seems to be really attached to is One Piece, which is something he talks about quite frequently and seems to have a strong passion for. There's so much to cover regarding One Piece, so many unique ideas, so much that goes into making One Piece's world feel so real.
Okay, I've watched One Piece, or basically up to the time skip all the way once, and then I've rewatched it again once, and then I've rewatched some of my favorite arcs.
How many episodes is that?
That's
multiple
like
times.
500-600
I fucking know it is.
So there's our solution. There's plenty of interesting conversation to make with One Piece, and Gigguk has stated that he's seen One Piece multiple times, so he very much understands the things that make One Piece great.
He told me One Piece is very political.
Yes. What aspect?
Here's the thing. I think sometimes, especially when you see this a lot in Japanese manga, sometimes authors will put shit in there just because it looks cool.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's like, the curtain is blue kind of like argument. Sometimes you look at something and it's a reference to some Western media or Western history. And a lot of the times it's just Japanese people find Western things that find Western things cool.
It's too many. It's too many coincidences.
Hey y'all, Fumbus here. What the fuck? How in the fuck did you not know that One Piece is political? And why are you denying it? This is not a small detail or a coincidence. This is a major overarching theme in One Piece that so many have covered. The biggest moments in One Piece are Luffy rebelling against a corrupt government or taking down a dictator. I'm not even that far into One Piece, but what I do know is that one of the key things that make One Piece's world feel so special to so many different people is the different different ways each island operates with their own societal issues, as well as the different types of people One Piece represents. Swag Kage is a YouTuber who primarily does Naruto, Dragon Ball, and sometimes Hunter x Hunter content, who resented One Piece for the longest time and just started really getting into it. Yet he was able to catch on to this way faster.
One Piece has a lot to say about serious real-world issues like racism and how the oppressed interact with their oppressors, or the power and prevalence of weaponized information and disinformation, particularly how these things can be used by and how powerful they are in the hands of political institutions like national governments, or in One Piece's case, the world government.
Gigguk loves One Piece and has stated he has rewatched One Piece or parts of it multiple times. So if anybody should know this, it's Gigguk! So what the fuck? Oh, I can't get too mad at you. You're so cute. So remember when I said Gigguk has a good understanding of what makes these shows good? He likes AOT. So if Gigguk misses a core part of what makes One Piece special, so, what does that mean for you guys? I know this seems a bit harsh, and look, I'm not gonna pretend I have a perfect memory or anything, right? Or I totally understand all the things I love. I love Lord of the Rings, but I can't name every character or location. I have a lot to learn about the Tolkienverse. The difference is I don't pretend like I can. Whether it's as a joke or not, Gigguk does present himself as someone who knows what he's talking about. So it makes it that much worse when he not even forgets things, but straight up misrepresents certain series, showing a lack of understanding for them, while still acting like he knows what he's talking about. On paper, that doesn't sound like too big of a deal, but again, Gigguk is a big YouTuber with a large influence. These misconceptions spread and do some public damage to a lot of these series. A moment of silence for the Bleach fans. It's okay. It's all over now. It's in these streams where it's most apparent. First off, Naruto. Neither of us have seen Naruto in quite a while, but let's take a character like Kakashi, who lost everything, was forced to do things he didn't want to, has these memories still haunt him, and sees one of his students go through the same trauma, but letting darkness consume him. When you have a character like that, and you just kind of boil him down to...
Kakashi's nice, Kakashi's cool. He has nostalgia, right? He has the fangirls, he's sexy behind that mask. I don't think Kakashi should be on this list. This is an L for me, man. This is an L.
Did we watch the same show? Again, this is not something that's small or insignificant. It's made very clear how dark of a character Kakashi is. If he doesn't like Kakashi as a character too much, that's fine. That's his opinion. But he acts like Kakashi has no business being on this top anime characters list, as if he has the authority to tell you what anime characters should and shouldn't be on the list.
I don't think that he deserves to be on a list for the greatest anime characters of all time. This is a competitive list. We do not have space for okay.
If he's not in your top 25 anime characters, that's totally fine. But don't act like there aren't valid reasons to put him on here or consider him a great character when you clearly didn't bother to pay attention to the series you're talking about.
Maybe if it was another Naruto character, would I pick Kakashi over some of the other characters? Versus over some of the other characters in Naruto?
Dog, which characters? Also, this is what I mean by influence. Look, they're all agreeing with him. I guarantee you they watch Naruto through TikTok edits. Look, I don't want to sound too much like a fanboy, but I do feel like he just be mad disrespectful to certain series, especially Dragon Ball.
You know, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you don't have bad taste. I just want to know how many other anime you've watched, I guess.
I'm not a big Dragon Ball fan or anything, right? I've not seen quite enough to really say a whole lot. And I understand that the franchise as a whole has some issues, and maybe hasn't aged all too pixel perfect. I mean, it's the first of its kind, it's gonna have a few screws loose. But despite that, I have a massive amount of respect for Toriyama's work, and what he did for so many of my favorite series, which is why it's so disheartening to see creators like Gigguk kind of trash on it without giving criticisms with real substance, other than, it hasn't aged well, too dragged out, lots of filler, It's nostalgia talking. He really likes saying that. He likes nostalgia talking. You can dislike Dragon Ball for these reasons. Like, I'm not saying these aren't actual reasons, but again, there are reasons I've heard so many times before, to the point where they feel like buzzwords. You know what I mean by that? Like, opinions that become pretty popular and start to be used by everyone, especially people who haven't watched the show, only for those opinions to later get debunked by people who actually fucking paid attention. If you've been in the anime community for a long time, then tell me, how many times have you heard phrases such as, Bleach falls off after Soul Society, Ichigo is a boring main character with no goal, Naruto is about hard work beats talent, One Piece is too long? I can't be too sure, obviously, but when I hear people say things like that, it makes me think they haven't seen much of it and use very little knowledge of the series and word of mouth to back up their claims. Just saying things like too dragged out or hasn't aged well and leaving it at that just means nothing to me at this point.
Come on, guys. In terms of character writing,
Okay, the character writing, yes. What about it?
Compared to other characters that are on this list, compared to other characters that I haven't seen on this list right now, it's Dragon Ball compared to some of the other characters is here for its lineage.
Alright, though I do respect him for at least giving Dragon Ball Super 50 episodes. I mean, Dragon Ball fans don't even really like Super all too much, so it's up to you if that even counts, but good on him. Like I said, I'm not a Dragon Ball meat writer or anything, like I'm not here to tell you it's an untouchable masterpiece, but from what I know of Dragon Ball, I do think there's a bit more to it than he thinks. Dragon Ball has some great, endearing characters. Gohan's character development from being a scared child to a badass to a family man just the way he wanted to be after a life of trauma is pretty good. Really emotional, iconic moments like the father-son Kamehameha, the perfect conclusion to Gohan's character arc, the first ever Super Saiyan transformation, and manga-wise, if there's one thing Dragon Ball still nails even today, it still has some of the best panel composition and fight choreography I've seen in shonen. The character designs are so simple and clear-cut, making the action extremely readable and using anticipation to give the fights a sense of weight and impact. If you want a video that goes more in depth about this very topic, watch Super Eye Patch Wolf's video. I highly recommend it. Now, these points I just made aren't very new either. They're probably stuff you've heard before as well. But hey, at least I'm saying something, right? Something that's specific to Dragon Ball and gives you an idea of what this series is like. Gigguk just acts like there's nothing great to really say about Dragon Ball other than being influential.
It would be tough to ignore that Dragon Ball Z did not have an effect on shaping what anime is today.
No, it wouldn't be hard. It would be impossible. Dragon Ball is fully responsible for some of the best shonen manga ever made. So if these are what you consider peak shonen, then at the very least some great ideas had to come from this so-called outdated manga, or these wouldn't be as good as you claim. You like One Piece, right? You do realize Eiichiro Oda's favorite mangaka is Toriyama, right? So it's a bit awkward, isn't it? I just feel like when he talks about some of these shows, it feels like he's talking about them as if they're like the lesser shonen, like they can't be looked into or analyzed, when numerous of creators have been able to show that there's so much more to them than people think. It's hard to explain what I mean by lesser shonen, but I think this clip can sum it up pretty well.
Some tend to view shonen as the normie demographic. It's just a bunch of mindless action, nothing but power scaling and death battles. Or at least, most of them are. When a series like Hunter x Hunter pops up, it's an exception to the norm. People will bend over backwards to distinguish it from the rest of its ilk, throwing out a term like deconstruction to justify their appreciation of a shonen. Or with something like My Hero Academia currently taking the community by storm, you'll find a prominent YouTuber like Gigguk describing it as not first and foremost a shonen battle series, but a character drama? Because it constantly uses fights to realize narrative beats and character arcs like most shonen do. See, even self-proclaimed shonen trash like Gigguk feel this need to distinguish the good shonen from the average. as if the average is actually below average.
It's like when your movie elitist friend goes, "We all know that Citizen Kane is a better film than Kung Fu Panda because I don't need to explain myself. It's Citizen Kane. It's the greatest movie ever made. Kung Fu Panda is a stupid kids movie for stupid kids. I don't need to explain why Dragon Ball isn't good. I don't need to go back and see if I'm missing anything. It's Dragon Ball. There's no value to be found. There's nothing to look into. It's nostalgia talking." Look, the last thing I want Gigguk to do is rewatch these 200 plus episode shows, okay? I think that's stupid. But if you don't have anything of value to really say about them or much information to go off of, then don't say anything about them. Don't pretend like you have an insightful take and have an authority on which character should and shouldn't be on this IGN list, when you clearly don't know much about the characters in question. And, dog, I don't even like IGN, but don't come at the person who made the article saying that they don't understand anime or they don't know what they're talking about, when you don't really seem to know what you're talking about either. Ooh, my boy Gigguk, he really likes to switch teams on certain shows, doesn't he? I kind of find his opinions on Bleach, for example, pretty strange. He's built up sort of a reputation of hating on Bleach, and I think out of all the hate Bleach gets, I would say he's kind of one of the worst offenders just because he blatantly switched up on Bleach when the new anime came out.
And while I don't agree with a lot of the conclusions he comes to about the quality of Bleach's story, he's a cool guy, and you should totally follow him.
I mean, I still feel how I feel, but I probably shouldn't have said it like that. It was a really big learning experience for me, and it completely changed how I wrote scripts afterwards. I learned to...
I've clowned on Bleach so fucking much. I've clowned on Bleach fans, I've clowned on the Bleach manga, I've clowned on pretty much every aspect of Bleach. But fuck that, I'm hype as fuck, this is gonna be fucking incredible.
But when you really look at it, he seems to like most of Bleach. Okay, so here he says Soul Society was peak. Interesting. And he says that Hueco Mundo was very good. Okay. So I don't know if he means specifically Hueco Mundo or the Arrancar arc as a whole, just because...
With Bleach. I dropped it at the Aizen arc. Anything after that, I had no fucking idea. But people around me kept reading it. And they were like, yeah, you know the whole like Hueco Mundo stuff? I was like, yeah, that thing.
Wait, isn't the Aizen fight after Hueco Mundo? Or do they just mean the plot twist at the end of Soul Society with Aizen? Okay, so we're just gonna give the benefit of the doubt and say he's talking about specifically Hueco Mundo. Okay, so this goes up to chapter 315 and the anime ends right before the 1,000 Year Blood War arc, so around chapter 479. And from what I'm hearing, Gigguk is really liking the 1,000 Year Blood War arc, so... it just seems to be this particular section of Bleach that Gigguk doesn't really seem to like, which, yeah, is a lot, but interesting when compared to Naruto. He definitely likes Naruto more than Bleach, but the section he doesn't like in Naruto is comparatively much longer than Bleach's, adding on to the fact that he seems to have a lot more criticisms I've seen towards Naruto than Bleach.
Plot and character arcs building up to these events were so badly done that by the time the fights happened, the majority of us had already given up on the series or just dropped it entirely. Obito turned out to be just a rather disposable villain, all things said and done, and Sasuke's character arc was horrible. If you have a bloated and drawn out arc like the 4th fucking Ninja War, goes on this talk no jutsu being like, it don't matter about lineage, all that matters is putting the work in and believing in yourself. And then Naruto goes, actually, Destiny, I am the child of prophecy.
Obviously, there's going to be a whole lot of different factors at play. I can't use math and statistics to judge if a human being likes an anime, but it is something to think about. And just a quick reminder, I have not seen Bleach, nor have I much of a fondness for it, and I am an avid fan of Naruto. So you can't really say I'm being biased here when I say that it seems like, on the surface, he should like Bleach more than Naruto. What's even crazier is after all this, after shitting on Bleach and being one of the people who shat on Bleach for years, he pulls an Uno reverse card and still puts Bleach in a positive tier on the shonen tier list because nostalgia. Another example of these inconsistencies, and probably the prime example, is Demon Slayer. Cause I swear, this dude cannot make up his mind on this show. One second he says he really likes it, calls it great. Next second he calls it just good. Next he says JJK deserves the hype more. Then back to saying Demon Slayer is better. Then back to calling it overrated. Look, opinions change over time, they do. But this feels less like that and more like weird flip-flopping, as if he's a bit nervous to give his true take on Demon Slayer.
Is the ending of the spider fight. I rewatched that scene. I literally cried once again. It's one of the most unique climaxes to a shonen battle anime I've ever seen. So beautiful. It's just pure art.
Like, even comparing it to like other anime or other shonen, it's just it's good. It's good.
He does everything he needs to do to show off what makes Demon Slayer great. And I will leave it at that.
Every season I'm like, Demon Slayer shit, this is boring. And then like you get into the last 3 episodes and the training weights are off and you're like, holy shit, this is goated.
What? Huh?
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I will allow you to think that Demon Slayer is the 14th best anime of all time. If you've seen 14 anime.
Yeah, you know what? Never mind. You put it very clearly, cause Demon Slayer is absolutely overhyped. It's not the 14th best anime, or the best anime of the year, or anything like that. You know what it is though?
I don't even think it's in my top 3 shonen.
No, it's not.
Oh yeah, no, it's not in your top 3 shonen of all time. Oh no, it's only the 10th best shonen of all time. He put that shit above Golden Wind and Diamond is Unbreakable, and you call yourself a JoJo's fan? And yes, I did see the way you put this list together. That shit is in order. This isn't a small feat, because again, he clearly loves shonen anime.
And shonen manga in general have such a high quality, have such a high standard of quality to them. That just says a lot about how good the quality is.
Look, I'm not asking you to love Demon Slayer, to hate on Demon Slayer, to be indifferent, to say it's overhyped or just good. I'm not asking you for any of that. I just want you to make up your mind! Which is it?
As much as I want to downplay, as much as people want to downplay Demon Slayer, because of how popular it is, because of how much it's hyped up.
If you ask me, one of the most important parts about being a critic is trust. Your trust in their opinions, and no matter how much you disagree with them, you know they have the best intentions going into what they're talking about, and you have an idea of what they look for. As a critic, or not even a critic, just someone who talks about media, you want a level of transparency and to let the audience know what your ideals are and what opinions have changed. These inconsistencies kind of make me question how much I should believe in his opinion. And sometimes it makes me question just how much he really cares about these series at all. Does he really think these things, or should I just believe that he's bandwagoning on the safest anime take? Am I just supposed to believe that this is the best anime of the year only for him to never talk about it again? I don't know. It's kinda hard to tell. And what about My Hero Academia? He loved that show so much. He seemed to have such an immense enthusiasm for it, hyped it up every so often on his channel, but the moment it started reaching its low points, he completely switched teams without a second thought. Obviously, if a show dips in quality, your love for it is going to drop. I think that's fair. But to switch up this suddenly on a series, to jump on the hate bandwagon, further perpetuating the already bad reputation it has, while still struggling to give a coherent opinion as to why you don't like it anymore, to me, shows a lack of respect for the series and makes me question how much he cared about it in the first place. I don't particularly have the best idea as to what Gigguk values in a series, and I don't mean like, well, objectively speaking, the series is good. Like, I mean, what does Gigguk look for in a series? What does a series need to do to be top tier? Why can't some of these characters be on the list? He doesn't seem to address the actual criticisms towards Goku's character, like being dumbed down in Super, or making really dumb decisions, or Dragon Ball's final arc not really being the strongest. Why isn't Solo Leveling worthy of being the 27th best manga anyway?
It's not the 27th best manga of all time. It's not even close.
I watched the video and he doesn't really seem to have any particular issues with the manhwa other than it being a bit unoriginal or kind of repetitive. The entire video he was basically praising it and said himself that it's the finest power fantasy you can find.
But what it does do is done in the best possible way you can hope for. This is about as good as the genre can get. This is power fantasy at its finest, which is—
I guess maybe that's not saying too much, because I guess power fantasies generally aren't that great. But my issue here is that he doesn't say something like, I personally wouldn't put this in my top series. He states it like it's a fact, like it shouldn't be rated this high. So I'm just kind of left to assume that it shouldn't be rated this high, not because of its merit as a power fantasy, but just because it is a power fantasy. And why can't Demon Slayer be worthy of praise? Like, whether it deserves the hype or if the animation carries it is up to you. Whatever you think of Demon Slayer is irrelevant. Gigguk seemed to really love and enjoy Demon Slayer, well, sometimes, and said himself that episode 19 still makes him cry years later. It clearly had an immense impact on him, so what's the deal? Why can't they be great? Is it because they're simple? Does complexity make a story better even if you don't give a shit about them? Are they too normie for you? I don't think a story needs to be particularly complex or totally original to be great. I just think it needs to do whatever it wants to do and do that the best it can, or even go further beyond while still having its own identity. At the end of the day, every series is trying to do something different and shouldn't be treated differently based on what it is. Monster focuses on an ongoing complex mystery and villain. Berserk has a complex main character who goes through the motions of living in this dark fantasy world. Record of Ragnarok is a tournament-style manga with gods and historical figures duking it out with these amazing illustrations. And Demon Slayer is a simple but charming action anime where the action is the main entertainment, and in this visual medium, the visuals are one of the key strengths. One side is more complex and the other is more simple. Whatever you think is better is up to you, but I don't think one side should be considered lesser just based on what it's going for. Just like these shouldn't be labeled as pretentious, these shouldn't be labeled as just dumb fun, because I feel these phrases kind of discredit the art. You're probably thinking that I'm being a little too hard on all this, because you'll say, it's his opinion at the end of the day, you shouldn't judge his opinion. And I did feel that way too until I came across this stream clip. Now, this is a very old clip, so I don't think I should take it too seriously, but just have a look.
I think My Hero Academia is a better show than Naruto. I do think, trying to view this objectively, that My Hero Academia is going to be a better show than Naruto. Trying to view this objectively, that...
Objectively. Now, I think taking this one line seriously sounds kind of stupid, but it starts to make more sense once you see how he ranks these shows, and I think this is what I mean when I say he seems to hold his opinions kind of highly, or he thinks he knows what he's talking about. You might have noticed through these clips that I've shown you that Gigguk will state some of his opinions, maybe not always as like a fact or something, but kind of like a rule of thumb. As if this is the ideal tier list, or ideally My Hero Academia should be better than Naruto, or ideally every shonen anime after Dragon Ball should be better, when that should never be the point. Not only does every series do something completely different, but everyone has their own standards and values on what they want in their story. Saying the characters are compelling or that the story is good can only go so far, because some people value visual storytelling more, some people want more complex storytelling, some people want it to be more simple, some people prefer no dialogue at all, some people prefer a lot of dialogue. It all depends on what you want. Even if Fullmetal Alchemist, for example, is considered the most condensed and consistent anime experience you're gonna find, some people still might prefer Code Geass because that anime arguably has higher highs, a stronger main character, a stronger ending, and overall took more risks than FMA despite being a bit messier. Or saying that One Piece is the absolute best of the big three and just leaving it at that, to me at least, is a major discredit to Naruto and Bleach, especially when they have their own strengths that are arguably One Piece's greatest weaknesses. And one might simply prefer the stylized, slick, battle-centric nature of something like Bleach over a more politically driven story like One Piece. It's really up to you in my opinion, so trying to look at these series and determine which is ideally the best or objectively better should never be the point, because it's art, and art is meant to be enjoyed. Okay, so this one is going to be a bit more specific and biased, but I'll try my best to explain what I mean in this section, so, yeah. So Gigguk definitely reads manga and discusses some of the ones he discovers from time to time, but is primarily an anime channel. The dedication to that is pretty respectable, so this is less of a Gigguk problem and more of a problem that comes from the anime and manga landscape. As anime continues to grow in popularity, so does manga, and while this doesn't apply to everyone, I think a lot of us have switched over to the manga counterparts the moment an anime ends, and we engage in a lot of these discussions over the current events of a manga that we really like. We see so many analysis videos on the current parts of a manga. We know how good these series get over time. So when Gigguk says things like,
I don't even feel like Jujutsu Kaisen has even come close to reaching its peak. It's good, they're both good, but they're both shonen shows that, in my eyes, have not come close to reaching their full potential yet.
I don't want to say it's overhyped. Jujutsu Kaisen is the new kid on the block. You know, it's not done anything that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Anyone that puts Jujutsu Kaisen high, mid, and beyond are manga readers. Gonna call that right now.
It's like, I can't be too mad because he's not wrong, because he's talking about the anime, but it's kind of like, it's like, you know when you have that friend with ADHD who sometimes doesn't listen to what you're saying, so you have to repeat it? It's like, I shouldn't be mad at you, but I guess it's when you hear this from the perspective of a manga reader. Of course, hearing Gigguk say things like it hasn't reached its peak yet or it's too early to decide is odd because you literally seen it reach its peak. He even addresses this in his problem with reviewing anime video, which I think is one of his best videos. There is always going to be a disconnect between the manga reader and the anime watcher because manga and anime are so intertwined, and these type of opinions will just be premature by nature. They're not wrong opinions because in the context of just the anime, yes, he's technically right. But like, yeah, of course manga readers are gonna rate this anime really highly. They read the manga, they love it, they're happy that the thing they love is getting the attention it deserves in a good adaptation. But that's of course my perspective, whereas he's speaking from the perspective of just the show alone, which only has one season at the time this clip was made. I guess it wouldn't be too bad if Gigguk didn't have a tendency to joke about manga readers, even though they're kinda right half the time. All the manga readers said that the next season of MHA would be really good, and Gigguk scoffed at them. Wow, look at that, it's the best MHA arc in quite a while. Tokyo Ghoul fans raved, saying that the manga was really good and the anime did it dirty. Gigguk of course didn't believe them, and would you look at that, when he finally caved in, he said Tokyo Ghoul was really that good. Who knew that a manga with an 8.5 Mao rating was actually really good? So I guess the problem here is that it's us waiting for him to realize he's wrong. Obviously not wrong, cause it's all subjective at the end of the day, but it's us as an audience seeing, just knowing that Gigguk will probably change his opinion the moment he gets to these arcs everyone's been hyping up. And based on these general trends of Gigguk's public opinions, I don't know about you, but I have a sneaking suspicion that when Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 ends, he'll say it's worthy of the hype, that when Chainsaw Man gets more chapters adapted, he'll realize that just like Jujutsu Kaisen, it's actually a really special manga with a lot to offer and a lot of unique qualities. And in the near distant future, where Gigguk finally decides to watch Full Metal Alchemist, he'll drop the bomb by saying that the highest rated anime on Mao, the #1 anime of all time, is actually pretty good. Wow, I would have guessed it. This kind of makes a lot of Gigguk's opinions feel a bit predictable, and while there's nothing wrong with just watching the anime, this can lead to some bumps in the road. Let's go back to Chainsaw Man. Everybody was talking about Chainsaw Man before the anime even came out. Everyone was talking about how Chainsaw Man is based. Chainsaw Man is a masterpiece. People have been analyzing, speculating Chainsaw Man, and are still doing this with the success of Part 2. With this in mind, what does Gigguk have left to say? What incentive do I have to watch this video over these ones aside from the fact that it's done by the man himself? In my eyes, that should be a big challenge when making a video that is essentially the first 40 chapters of Chainsaw Man. Look, I know it's really hard to approach this kind of video because it's Chainsaw Man. It's a very overdone topic. But I would have at least appreciated some type of unique approach to a done-to-death topic, maybe focusing more on the anime-only scenes, or more focus on how it's animated instead of these just being like quick segments. Tiny details you might have picked up on, I don't know, something like that. And the video itself is good for what it is, but it kind of ends up just being another Chainsaw Man video. I mean, that's fine, cause like I said, the video is good, but it can leave a bit to be desired, mostly because he has such little material to work with. It's not his fault, that's just the inherent issue. I I said a lot, so I don't really know how to sum it all up, but I guess I can try. Gigguk is a lovely little ball of energy, and I can't be too harsh on him, not just because he's a good guy, but also because he vaguely looks like my cousin. And I don't want anything bad happening to him. So what you should take away from this video is that, yeah, I like Gigguk, I just kind of roll my eyes at a lot of the things he says. You can disagree, that's perfectly fine, but I do feel the way I do at the end of the day. And all the points I brought up are the reason I really appreciate creators like Anthony Fantano, Video Game Donkey, and Super Eyepatch Wolf. Now, they're not the pinnacle of taste or anything like that. They don't always get things right. I know a lot of people have their critiques for Eyepatch Wolf's Bleach video, but it always feels like they have something to say. Fantano has such concrete opinions and always stands his ground. Super Eyepatch Wolf is able to give you such an interesting perspective on certain media and is never afraid to put the tiniest details into the forefront. And Donkey is never afraid to piss off a large group of people with his takes. And as an audience, you've grown such a familiarity with what kind of games he responds to and what he doesn't like. They always stand by what they say. It's not like, that's right, Bleach is bad. Bleach is the worst. Ooh, what's this? Bleach got really popular and people love it again? Better chuck it in B tier just to be safe. It's more like, I don't like RPGs, I don't like dark twisted fantasy, and I don't like Bleach. You can tell me how you feel, I'll be happy to correct what I messed up on, but I'm not gonna change my opinion. To be fair though, it might be hard to compare Gigguk to these guys, since at the end of the day, Gigguk is not really trying to, I guess, know his stuff, or do some crazy ass analysis in the same vein as someone like Alexander or Super Eyepatch Wolf. He's just trying to make entertaining videos for a general audience of anime fans. I can't expect him to know everything or formulate every single opinion with crazy nuance. My point is that Gigguk is someone that's known for his anime discussions or opinion pieces and has made multiple statements or opinions on anime that I have found to be either kind of ignorant, unfair, or, dare I say it, just kind of disingenuous, and I feel like he gets away with a lot of it because he just happens to be a pretty good YouTuber. Whether you like his content or not, Gigguk produces exceptionally high quality videos that are very inviting to a mass audience of anime fans. So because of this and him just overall being a pretty good guy, you don't see as many people try to call him out because I guess many may feel like he doesn't deserve it. Because imagine if more hated YouTube critics like Doug Walker or CinemaSins were to pull these kind of stunts. These are YouTubers who, similarly to Gigguk, produce content that isn't really meant to be like super serious criticism or analysis, and mainly just for entertainment purposes, yet have been called out on numerous occasions for having unfair or surface level critiques, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that Gigguk needs this kind of treatment or hate, oh no, not at all, but I feel like people have become too comfortable with Gigguk being an overall decent YouTuber to really call him out on the things he says. Now, Gigguk by no means has to listen to what I have to say. Gigguk is doing very well for himself. He's got a stable YouTube channel as far as I know. He's got a very successful podcast. He goes on tour, he travels, he even got himself a wife, and I think that is very sweet. And at the end of the day, Gigguk got millions of people into anime and played a role in popularizing it, so I can't really ever take that for granted. Gigguk is not obligated to listen to my thoughts and opinions, but I don't want to end this video on a bad note. So I'm gonna do the top things that I think would make Gigguk a gooder anime talk-abouter, discussioner. These are my opinions, yada yada yada, Okay, let's get to this. This video's already too long. Number 1, I think Gigguk should watch a little less anime. Obviously, I can't force Gigguk to do this, but in the past, he has talked about burnout when it comes to anime, and I don't think the seasonal anime videos really help because I'm willing to bet that he doesn't care about half these shows. Bro, 3 episodes, I wouldn't even give this shit like 3 minutes. And no matter what type of content he seems to do, the views on each video seems to be pretty consistent. So while there's always going to be that one thing you just gotta make a video on because it's trending, which I don't blame him because, you know, it happens to me too. I'd really love to see more videos where Gigguk is extremely passionate about the subject matter. Make a video on One Piece. I think that would be really epic because you talk a lot about One Piece, and I think you could say something really cool that isn't about the politics. You've read 20th Century Boys, right? This is your favorite manga? Do a video on 20th Century Boys. What, you don't think it's gonna do that well? Trust me, it will. Number 2, on the topic of watching anime, I really do think some rewatching would help. Look, this is gonna be pretty hypocritical of me since I don't normally rewatch things unless I really feel like I should, but from what I've seen today, yeah, some of these shows could use a bit of a rewatch, or at least some research before talking about them. To me personally, one of the great beauties of art is learning something new from them. It shouldn't just be, this show is good and has good characters. Next, obviously you're not gonna understand every single nook and cranny regarding a series from one more rewatch, but you can learn something new about it that you haven't before. One series can speak 1,000 words. Also, if you want, you can always watch an Alexander video, those always help. And number 3, stand your fucking ground. Is Demon Slayer great? Is it good? Is it okay? Is it mid? Don't worry about what everyone's saying or the manga or whatever. Just follow your heart and tell me what it is. Moist Critical made a video where he was talking about One Piece and made a few not so favorable comments on Luffy's character and I guess One Piece in general. And while there's always going to be angry fanboys in the comments, a lot of people just seem to simply disagree with some of the points he made.
My fellow One Piece fans, can we not just take a W? Can we not just be happy that someone else is into One Piece and not like fucking try to tear them apart for just one opinion that you disagree with?
What? No, don't pass it off. Talk about the points he made. Engage in the discussion. Have a nice, civilized dispute. Why not? This isn't politics, it's anime. Well, then again, I guess it is politics. And whatever. The point is, don't be afraid to discuss, to challenge these arguments. I mean, y'all are friends, right? And a great way to build healthy friendships is arguing. Is Gigguk gonna watch this video? It depends on how big this video gets, I guess. Is this video necessarily absolute? I wouldn't say so. So why did I make this video? I don't know. I just really felt like talking about this. It was something that was bothering me for quite a while and I'm finally happy to get it out there. So if you stuck through the end, thank you so much for sitting through this long ass video just to hear what I have to say about something that's not really a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it's just something I'm very passionate about. I really appreciate it.